Hey there, it's Scott. And first, let me say thank you for even listening to this episode. Now, what you're about to hear is my conversation with Johnny. And before I get into that, I thought I should take a moment to at least explain to you why. And it all comes down to our reunion. I was super excited, as some of you probably saw on Facebook, super excited to get down there and see you guys. Now, granted, I saw you 5 years ago, and I saw you guys at the 10-year, but there's a lot of in-between time. Nonetheless, I was very excited to get down there and hang out with you guys again, and it was a really great time. My only regret was that I wish that more people from our class had shown up, but they have their own reasons, they have their own lives, maybe they couldn't do it. Whatever the case was, I just want those people to know you were missed. But to say that's my only regret is not true. There's another big regret that I have, and it's this one. As I drove home, I did a lot of thinking. 8 hours, 9 hours of driving will do that for you. And as I drove home, I started reflecting on the conversation that I was having during dinner with Jonathan Malik and Kim Bobenhausen. And the reality hit me that I hadn't really learned much new about them. They had been very gracious in asking me questions about how I ended up coming to the academy, but I didn't know about them. I didn't really know about their high school experience, what they felt like at Collegedale. And so when I got home, I was frustrated about that. But then I thought, wait a second. I interview people for podcasts all the time, complete strangers oftentimes. Well, those interviews are very, very powerful. So why not have interviews with the people you think that you know? And so, as some of you might know, I posted the invitation on Facebook to anyone who would be willing to call me up and allow me to record the conversation so I can ask you, how did you end up at Collegedale Academy? What was your experience like? Where did you go afterwards? What would you do differently? What would you never change? So I hope that you enjoy this conversation with Johnny. I hope that it inspires you to maybe think, you know what, I'd be willing to share my experience as well. That would mean a lot to me. So just sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy this conversation with your and my friend, Johnny Barnes. How you doing, man?
Doing good.
Yeah? What are you doing right now?
What am I doing right now? I am just looking at Facebook, having an adult beverage, just hanging out.
An adult beverage? You're almost 48 years old. Are you 48?
I am 48.
When's your birthday?
November 27th.
Oh, and then you'll be 49.
49.
Wow.
I'm still one of the young ones in the class, though.
Yeah, my birthday's like December 17th, so I'm just right behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're an old man compared to me.
You know what? I feel like that sometimes.
Well, you are the very first. You're the very first interview that I've had.
Okay.
So no pressure. Right. No pressure on you at all here.
I don't feel pressure, man.
No, I don't doubt that. Go ahead.
Hey, it's a good thing, though, because I thought you were going to do like FaceTime. I was going to be on video doing this. I was like, well, sure, why not? I went dressed up real nice and pretty, man.
You're kidding.
No, I got on a T-shirt and some pajama bottoms.
So what I'd love to do is just kind of, it's not even just so much catching up, but it's more just like finding out about what was going on before the academy and some of the things that happened after the academy.
Okay.
All right. And I also have Facebook open here because I asked anybody else if they had any other questions for you. I don't know what kind of things might come up here. So it's them.
Go for it.
Inquiring,
I know it's all them.
Yeah, inquiring minds. They would want to know. So the first question I'd have for you is, you didn't go to A.W. Spalding, correct?
No. I went out to the Chattanooga school from 4th grade up till high school, or the academy, I guess you call it.
And was that an Adventist school too?
Yes.
Okay.
And before that, I was kind of moved around a little bit, and I was at several public schools in the Chattanooga area.
Were you born and raised in Chattanooga?
Yes, at Erlanger.
Is that right?
I was.
So why did you go to those schools and not maybe to Spalding?
Well, my mom, who was single when I was young, ended up marrying an Adventist guy, and that's what got us started going to the Adventist school in fourth grade. And why we went to that school, I know, it's because we went to the Chattanooga Adventist church, and so they had they had their own Adventist school, and it was real small. I think our graduating 8th grade class was one of the biggest in history, and it had 10 people in it. So
were you related? Were you related to anybody in your class?
No.
I say that because, like, I can remember in early life going into an Adventist elementary school, and 2 of my cousins, three of my cousins were there, and my sister. So it was like a family affair. That's why I asked.
Right. Yeah, and that made up half the school.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, so in the 4th grade, then, is when you were introduced to Adventism. Is that correct?
Yeah. I guess that's accurate.
What did you think of Adventism?
I was 4th grade, man. I didn't really know much about it or what to think about it. I was my grandparents on my dad's side were dyed-in-the-wool, hellfire brimstone Baptist.
Okay.
And and to be honest, we didn't really go to church a whole lot growing up.
All right.
Like I said, Mom was single, for most of that time, and so we just my memories of growing up and on the weekends were just hanging out at the house and just having family time and going out and playing in the yard and doing that kind of stuff.
Right. But then one day.
Every once in a while.
But one day, was there just no more bacon in the house? Is that what happened?
Yeah, pretty much. I remember, this is a long time ago, so I remember vague memories of my mom saying, this is what we're going to start doing. And, and be honest with you, man, growing up, we didn't have anything. I mean, we really were pretty poor. And so to me, it was like, whatever. I was just happy for what I had. I was a kid. I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
And the only thing, the main thing that bothered me growing up, not being able to watch TV on Saturday, watch cartoons in the morning. That's the only thing I remember going, man, that sucks.
Right. I can remember sneaking and trying to watch cartoons until I hear them coming in the hall and then turning it off real quick. But
yeah. Well, it was like, Saturday night, if I had something on TV, I mean, I knew exactly when sundown was, and I mean a minute after sundown. It was still, you still had to glow. I mean, I was putting the TV on.
I can still see the sun a little bit, so.
Yeah. But the weather, man, it says right here when sundown is.
Did you have issues growing up? Like I remember, did you ever have those debates with people about how far in the water you could go on the Sabbath?
Oh, no. I did have the discussion. I don't know if it was a discussion. It was more just one-sided. I can't figure out why in the world I can go play in the creek on Saturday, but I can't go play in the pool on Saturday. I was like, what's the difference? I don't understand.
Well, there's chlorine. Chlorine. It's one of the Levitical laws. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I was like, I just don't understand that. It makes no sense to me. And and then of course, as you got into academy, the conversation would be, well, can't wear jewelry, but you can wear a stick pin or a watch. I'm like, well, that's we don't want to be spending money on frivolous things. I said, that guy's got a $10,000 watch on.
Yes.
You don't think that's frivolous? Come on. So get Rolex off,
So when you went to this school, were any of the students, did they also follow you to the academy?
Yeah, Jeff Moore.
Okay.
Joanna Lauren, Angie Cabe.
Okay.
Pam Scoggins.
Okay.
Who was he? I think that's all I can know for sure off the top of my head who came from
okay, so you weren't alone. When you went to Collegedale,
no.
you weren't walking in totally solo. All right.
No, but I actually started out there playing softball before I went to the academy. So I knew, like Gary Cruz and Brian Benton and some of those guys, I knew from playing softball.
Oh, okay.
And so I had done that. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 summers before academy started. And so I knew those guys going into the academy. So it wasn't too bad for me.
Did you have any anxiety at all?
Thinking back, it's like any, going from like I said, we had 10 graduating people going to a class at that time in the academy. I think we had our freshman year was almost 90 people, which was, for that school was pretty good size amount. So, you go from, it was more or less just going from a small school to a big school, but it seemed to me, for me, as I remember, being a smooth transition.
Okay.
And hooking up with a bunch of guys and girls and enjoying it.
Yeah. What are your earliest memories of the academy? Like that first year when you get there?
I remember there was because I don't want to name names. Yeah. There was a girl that was, I think it was like on the one of those Icebreaker or something like that, or it was one like the I think it was even before Icebreakers, before the school even before class even started. Okay. We had gone, and there was this girl that was flirting with me.
All right.
Well, I thought she was cute, and I was flirting back, and for like a week, it was kind of like my first high school. I don't want to say girlfriend because it was nothing like that. Right. But we were kind of communicating back and forth. I thought, well, she's cute, and I remember people asking me, "Why do you like her? What's up with her?" And I was like, because I didn't know any background or know anything about her. I thought, well, she's been nice to me. I was friendly. Uh-huh. And everybody was just kind of, no, I don't want to say making fun, but high school kids are. They're like, sure. Yeah, whatever. You don't know her. And sure enough, within like a week or two, I thought, man, this girl's crazy.
It's funny when that light goes.
Because I have, I can say that because I have no idea where she is now. She didn't graduate with us, and she was, I don't know, that's like my freshman year. I don't even know if she went there after that.
It's funny when that light goes on. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you have that as an early memory. And you went to Collegedale all 4 years. Yes. Now, so I left after my sophomore year. Right. So you said our class was there were 90 initially. You saying roughly?
Yes, it was 80 or 90. Because I remember at one point I was thinking at one point we had close to 100 people in our class. Now, if I count right, I think we ended up graduating at like 66 or something like that. But at one point I remember somebody. And that might just be, I don't know, something I'm making up. Yeah. But I was thinking it was close to 100 people at one time.
Okay. That's a really pretty big class, at least it being in my experience. One for an Adventist school, but for any Adventist school, I think that's a pretty good amount. Now, I don't know. Were the other classes that large? Were they pretty close to that?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think most of them were 50 to 60. I remember. Well, let's put it this way. I remember the normal school size was about 250. So, oh wow, for 4 years. So.
Holy cow. Yeah, okay. That puts it in perspective. So of the 4 years you were there, which was the most challenging for you? And I mean challenging in any way. It may have been challenging socially or academically or otherwise.
Yeah.
Don't tell me they were all easy.
No, I don't think it's one particular year. I think you goes in phases. You have, times in your life which are difficult, whether it's girlfriend, boyfriend relationships or academic relationships. I think my senior year when I'm like, okay, I'm pressuring not just outside but myself. Where am I going to go to college? What am I going to do? I had these big dreams of going to some big school. I knew I wasn't going to go to Southern. Yeah. I was just, that was kind of more of an issue.
So did you feel a lot of pressure your senior year, externally and?
I don't want to say, I don't really want to say pressure. It was because I just I'm kind of a happy-go-lucky guy for the most part anyway. So I try not to let stuff bother me. But, at that time, it's like, okay, what am I going to do now that, high school's getting close to over? Where am I going to go next year? What am I going to do? And it turned out to be a simple solution. I just went down to UTC.
Yeah.
So, so it was fine. But I had this big idea in my head that I'm going to go. Yeah. In fact, I called. Of course, we didn't have computers or we didn't have internet, so it wasn't like I was get online and find out about these schools. I'd get the book and look up colleges. And so one day I said, North Carolina, that's interesting. I'm going to call up there. And the lady says, I call her, interested in applying. She goes, hon, did your parents go to school here? And I said, no, ma'am. Do you live in the state of Carolina? And I said, no, ma'am, I don't. She goes, well, I'll just be honest with you. The chance you get in here is slim to none. I said, well, she goes, I'd hate for you to waste all that money for the application and not have a chance to get in. I said, well, ma'am, I appreciate that very much. And I just hung up. I said, maybe UTC sounded better all the time.
Why not up in Knoxville? Why UTC? Just to stay in town?
I actually, it turns out basically I paid for my whole college, and that was where the when it comes down to monetary and realize I don't have any.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go where I can afford.
Yeah.
And UTC, I had friends going to UTC. David Eldridge and Steve O'Neill were going down there, and Gary, and went down there. And I said, hey, that's fine for me.
Yeah.
Why not? It's home, local. So
when did you know? Well, in high school, what did you think you were going to end up studying?
My whole plan all along, even in high school, is going to be a doctor of some kind.
Okay.
So I'm not too far off from there. I end up going to nursing and becoming a nurse anesthetist. So I knew I was wanting to get into the medicine of the health field.
Yeah.
It's funny, I don't take a whole lot of advice or remember a whole lot of good advice from my ex stepfather.
Okay.
But the one thing I always remember him saying that really stuck with me that makes a lot of sense. And he'd tell me, he says, whatever you plan on doing in college or after college, make sure there's always going to be a need for it.
Yeah.
And he goes, there's always going to be a need for healthcare. And I said, well, there you go. I'll find something in there. And then we had a bunch of friends, family friends, that were nurse anesthetists. And I was like, hey, they're doing pretty good for themselves. They enjoy what they're doing. And so that's where I ended up going, and actually ended up working with some of them, way down the road.
Is that right?
Kind of funny.
And so that is your career right now?
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing this then?
18 years.
Okay. And why do you love what you're doing? Do you love what you're doing?
It's funny. It's funny to say. I enjoy my job.
Yeah.
I enjoy what I do. But I think it's like any career that you have, you get to a point, it's like, okay, I've been doing this. I've done all I can do in this. Do I want to do something else?
Yeah.
And, it's like, I've always had this, working the ORs and stuff. I come up with this question. I said, if you had a job that you did not have to worry about getting paid for, now it has to be a legitimate job. You can't just say, I'm going to lay in bed all day and do nothing.
Yeah.
And get paid for it. If you had a legitimate job, what would you want to do? What would be your ultimate goal at this time in your life? And I'm talking to doctors, nurses, scrub techs. You have all different socioeconomic backgrounds, and it's funny to hear what people come up with. And I just like, so you think, okay, so if I had that one job that I could do, first of all, most people pick jobs that they're not going to get paid a whole lot anyway. It's just like adventures. I had one person come in to work for National Geographic and be a photographer. I thought that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Guys want to be coaches of football or baseball or whatever.
Right.
So I think you get to a point in your career, you look back and say, I've done a lot of good things. What's the next move? And for me, the problem, I should say problem, the issue is I make decent money.
Mm-hmm.
for me to make that kind of money, I obviously couldn't take a step back now. You know, you got kids and house payments and car payments.
Yeah.
So what can I do making the same amount of money I'm doing now without having to go back to school for 4 years?
Sure.
You know, or you know, and there is no job. There is none. So, you know, yeah, you know, I think, you know, so it's funny because, you know, it sounds stupid, but you look at somebody like, I also works in McKee Banking Company, and you think, you know, somebody working on the line in McKee, they're making, you know, $10, $12, $15, whatever they make an hour.
Yeah.
But in a way, it gives them freedom. If they get sick of that job, they can go get the same pay somewhere else at another job.
Yeah.
And so you're not quite tied down to that job. And so now you get to a point in, you know, a professional career in medicine, and you think, man, I've topped out what I can do. So, you know, it's just food for thought. I love my job. I enjoy what I do. I like taking care of people. But, you know, sometimes you just think, what else is there? You know?
What kind of advice have you given your sons? They're both still in high school at this time, correct?
I've got one at UTK, and I've got one at Macaulay.
All right. And so what kind of advice did or are you giving them? About school, about after school, everything, life?
No, there's several things I like to, you know, they might tell you something different.
Sure.
But something I always like to tell them is like, you know, I don't care what you do. Well, first of all, I say, I'm not too worried about the grades. I'm concerned about the effort you put in to get the grade. Mm-hmm. If you tell me that you studied your rear end off and still made average grades and didn't make very good grades, you know what? Then I'm like, that's it. You know, maybe it's the teacher. You know, I got real upset with my son one time in college, and he failed the course, or not failed the course, failed the test. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you know, what in the world? You know, did you study? You know, I studied hard. Well, I looked at, you know, of course, you know, the way it is now, I can look up his grades, I can see what everybody made on the test, or at least I can see the class average.
Yeah.
And he made like a 55, and the class average was like a 62. You know, so I'm like, okay, that's a teacher problem. That's not a kid problem. The kid said he studied. I have to believe him, and I go from there. So I just say, and then there's been times he's gotten a C, and I said, did you put the effort to a C? Well, yeah. I'm like, well, then you got what you deserved.
Right.
You know, and then the other piece information I tell them, or advice I try to give them, I was like, listen, I don't care what you become or what you do in life. That doesn't bother me. But you need to be the best at it no matter what it is. If it makes you happy going up, picking up garbage on the side of the street, go for it. But be the best there is. If you want to be a plumber, you can make good money being a plumber. You can make good money doing whatever you want to do. Yeah. If you're the best at it. I say, just do the best. Don't halfway do it. You know, that's you know, whether they take it to heart or, you know, oh, that's just the old man talking, you know.
They just roll their eyes at you.
You know, yeah, exactly. Well, you know.
All right, let's go back to you now. In which year did you find yourself in the most trouble?
Oh, man, I was always in trouble for something, and it usually wasn't bad stuff. It was just mischievous stuff.
Okay, like what?
You know, oh man, I don't know, some of it's embarrassing. Let's see. And I think I was the only teacher at Collegeville Academy ever to get sent to the office by Miss Midkiff, the librarian. Just being loud. And then, do you remember the little bread ties that we'd put on our fingers and we'd flip them?
Yeah.
You could break off one side of them and you could flip them.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I did it. Yeah, I flipped one across the room in the library and hit her window. And I mean, it just, you thought it was going to shatter the window. You know, the window that had all the wires going through it.
Yeah.
And she comes out there. Yeah, she comes out there. Who did that? And I'm just like, I did. Go to the office. And I'm just like, okay. But it was just stupid stuff like that. You know, it was just always, you know, talking, hands on, you know, always touching somebody.
Yeah.
Just,
what's the worst?
Getting in trouble.
What's the worst trouble you got into? And if you can't say, it's all right.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it to the listeners' imaginations.
Let me tell you, I lost my job at the academy because I was doing something I shouldn't have done. And I did get in trouble. That was a different story. So I lost my job there, and then I got another job back. So it wasn't. There was more of the story came out, and so anyway, I can't go any further in detail on that one.
Oh
But,
my gosh!
I did get in trouble. Yeah, I did get in trouble for dropping the the drivetrain out of the van, out of the school van. And
how did you do
got in
that?
trouble for that. Well, you know how the guys would put the back wheels on the speed bumps and spin out on them and burn the rubber on them.
Yeah.
And well, we had this was in the summer, and I worked there, and we put the school van up there and revved it up in park real high and just dropped it down in the drive.
Yeah.
And the next thing you heard was a big clunk, and I looked underneath there in the drive chain, just sitting on the ground. And I was like, "Whoops!" So I had to go talk to Mr. Rowe about that, and yeah, I got in trouble for it. And I was like, I don't know how it happened.
Who was your favorite teacher?
You know what? It's funny because a lot of people don't even remember Mr. Maggie.
I know
He was
that
the
name.
chemistry teacher. He left, I think, after our sophomore year, went out west. In fact, we liked him so much, we ended up voting and bringing him back for I don't know if it's commencement or something like that. One of the speeches we did.
Really?
Yeah.
And did you just like him as a person, or the way he taught, or both? Or?
Both, everything. You know, he was very personable. You could talk to him about stuff, and just a very nice guy. And he was one of the younger teachers too, so I think he just related a little bit better with us. And but he just all around super nice guy.
Yeah.
You know.
What teacher or what class was the most challenging for you?
What class?
Or teacher. And you can be honest, because not...
I'd say the most challenging teacher I had would have probably been between Mr. Morford and Mr. Swinson.
Okay.
And I tell you what, I learned more from both of those classes than any other classes I had.
Okay, so what made him... what was so challenging?
Well, they challenged you. They you just didn't give an answer. You had to give an answer and be able to say why.
Yeah.
Or, why that happened. Now, with Mr. Morford teaching physics, he was very good at bringing in things that you could relate to. I remember we were talking about sound and sound waves, and he brought in a slinky. And we went out to the gym floor and started moving it back and forth, and it was an example of sound waves. And then you'd have several of them going, and it was just a neat. He brought in just really simple kind of things that made the difficult parts of physics easy to understand.
Okay.
And I think it was funny because after I graduated and came back and was doing pretty good, I went to Kimberly reunions, and he told me, he says, Johnny, because let's be honest with you, there's a lot of us didn't think you'd do much in life.
Shut up.
He goes, I'm proud to see that you're doing well. I said, well, I appreciate that.
What the hell?
Yeah. Well,
I would have never thought that about you.
Yeah. Well, which is funny because I've had people tell me things from high school, and they said, just tell me, we didn't think you knew, it wasn't that they thought I was dumb or anything like that. They just thought I was a big goof off. I was like, well, I always made good grades, and, I always did well in class. I just had fun. I was this mischievous high school kid. And so I really thought it was, when I hear people tell me that, at first it kind of upset me that people thought that of me. And then I was like, well, whatever.
Yeah. So
yeah, whatever.
Did you hold I know you held some type of class office, I think our senior year. Did you hold a class office other years as well?
I don't remember. I remember my senior year, I was just like vice president of the men's club or boys club, whatever you want to call it. But that was the only thing I remember holding. I don't think I ever held any office in like class office or anything like that.
Mm. Did you do anything?
I think I ran. I know I ran my senior year for president, and Mike Van Buren beat me. That's the only one I remember.
Do you still hold it against him? Do you think he stole the election? Was Russia involved?
I don't think Russia was involved, but I think there was probably several of the faculty that were.
Yeah, they're like,
we don't want Johnny getting it.
Yeah, like I think this guy has a future in dentistry. I could use that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe offline we can pursue some of the more what's the word I'm looking for? Sensationalized portions of that story. Yeah. We can make something up. Mm-hmm. All right. So, what about music? Were you involved in like orchestra or like the choir or anything like that?
I did my senior year, because you have to take so many art classes or so many, whatever they call them now, pansy classes. And so, sorry, Richard. I didn't mean to think it's Richard Hickam. He's doing great.
He's a man's man.
But yeah. But you have to take some of those kind of classes. And so my senior year, I started taking art, and actually from Miss Cook. I'm sorry, the Cook or Crook? Cook, Miss Cook.
Okay.
And so I actually enjoyed it when I started it. But somebody told me they needed another percussionist in the band. Mm-hmm. Well, I knew how to read music. I'd taken piano lessons forever. And I said, well, I'd rather do that because I knew they had the band trip. So I wanted to go on the band trip. And so I ended up going in the percussion section after they actually let me, after the first quarter was over, they let me transfer to band. Okay. And so it all got the same grade. And so I did the band my 3/4 of my senior year.
Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. I had a blast. It was fun.
But not because of the music, was it?
You kidding, man? You get some Spanish fever going, and the tempo gets going.
Right.
It's funny. I was talking about music and band and that kind of and that stuff. When our senior year, of course, we didn't have prom. We had banquets, and so I don't want to say I was in charge because our president was, wasn't doing much, but I was the one that pretty much took care of everything. And so we everybody's probably looking at their annual right now. Who are these people we talking about? But for the senior, I think it was the junior senior banquet.
Yeah.
The theme was the 20s, the Roaring 20s. No, it could have been junior senior because I just looked at pictures the other day. My sister, who was a couple years behind me, was in it. So it must have been the main banquet, the school banquet.
Okay.
And it was like the Roaring 20s. And so we had rented, or not actually rented, we were able to borrow a man that he lived in Collegedale, had a vehicle from the 20s. It's really one of those Model T type cars.
Yeah. Okay.
And we took pictures with the stuff, and we had our banquet, and part of the banquet was it wasn't entertainment necessarily, but background music. The background music was jazz.
Okay.
So that's the jazz music. Well, there was a couple of guys that, they're just they're eating and bobbing their head. Not doing anything. No, we weren't grinding or dancing. They're just kind of bobbing their head music. Well, the staff, faculty didn't care for that and made us turn the music off.
What?
Yeah. Yes, I'm dead serious. And I was like, I was just like, I don't belong here.
What about athletics? Like, we didn't have any like competitive teams or anything, but what sports did you probably play or which ones were you best at?
Basketball and softball, I guess, are probably my and the Hawaiian football and all of them. I mean, I actually did. I was pretty decently athletic in high school, which when I think about my high school career, that's one of the biggest regrets I have looking back, is that I wish not I won't say public school. I wish I'd gone to a school that had
competitive
athletics.
Sports.
Sports, because that's the one thing I missed. And I remember getting a big conversation with Mr. Thompson about it, and it was just trying to say, hey, listen, it is making sense for us not to have sports and compete.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, well, they're trying to pawn this off as we don't want y'all getting misled, or be too competitive. That's not good for your soul, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, my argument was, this is the perfect time to witness. Is it not?
Mm-hmm.
And because they never could answer that question, they just didn't want to do it. They just didn't want to do it.
What sport?
Whatever.
What sport do you think you were strongest in?
If I was going to go to play in high school, it would have been football.
Okay. Now you mentioned Hawaiian football, and that I remember that vaguely. What was that again?
Hawaiian football is it wasn't touch football. It was non-contact. You if I can remember the rules, there was no running the ball. It was forward pass only, and you could pass it like 2 times maybe, or 3 times, and so basically it was like a high octane offense.
Okay.
And the only way you could stop them is either knock the ball down or get an interception.
Was it like 4 downs?
On the kickoff, oh yeah, all the other rules apply.
Okay.
It was just mainly on the offense. It was non-contact. They don't anybody getting hurt.
So as soon as somebody catches it, the play stops. Or
yes.
Okay, so once you catch it, there's no running afterwards.
Right. So.
And you were,
I think that's. It's been 35 years since I played that game, man. I've tried to push that part out of my head.
What if you had went to high school? What position do you think you would have played?
Tight end, baby. Tight end. I could catch everything that came to me.
Really?
But I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't fast enough to be a wide receiver.
But you could have been a tight end, you think?
I think so.
I think Todd Rebo would have been a good football player.
Oh yeah, fullback, baby.
Yeah.
He'd been a perfect fullback.
And Jeff Moore as well.
Oh yeah, he'd have been a player.
Yeah.
We had it. If we were, of course, at a small school like that, it comes down to it comes down financially also.
Right.
But we could have put together a team. I mean, we could have had a good team.
Mm.
Not just in our class, in the whole school.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you one more thing, and if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about it. But it would be high school romance or romances in your case, because you're a player. Yeah. And so who and obviously you are now happily married, a beautiful wife, lovely home, everything. Yep. So there's no part of Johnny Barnes is going, I'm pining for 1986 again. I get that. But who were what were the relationships that meant a lot to you?
Well, you look back over your high school relationships. Always go with your first one. That would have been Christy Lee. Yeah. Then actually we ended up dating again in our senior year. But then I had other girlfriends in there. Julie Guerin. Beth Parker.
Oh, okay. You went out with her. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that, it had a lot of girls / friends.
Right.
Acquaintances, I guess you'd call them.
What did you learn? How did your wife benefit by some of the things? What are some of the things you learned in those relationships that your wife actually benefited from? Do you think?
I wish I could say, I wish I could sit there and say, oh, I learned this and that, and in my case, unfortunately, I didn't learn a whole lot from those relationships
because you were a horrible person.
At times, yes. At times, yes. I admit it. Hey, I did some things. Ann Springer was another girl I forgot to mention.
Okay.
But there was times that I wasn't the best boyfriend, or even out of school, out of high school and stuff. I wasn't interested in being the nice guy and the good boyfriend and that kind of thing. I was which I hate to look back now and see things, and I did a lot of things I wish I hadn't done, or
I think that it's a rare thing though to have a high school guy that does it right. I mean, I know they're out there.
Yeah.
But they're a rare breed.
Yeah. Oh, you look at Shannon Cantrell. Him and his wife been married since high school. You know.
But so, Shannon is probably a serial killer. If we're all honest, Shannon has probably killed.
Yeah.
It's all just a front. And Shannon, we'll talk to you about that when we have a podcast with you. But most guys back then are idiots a lot of the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You know, that's why I can look at somebody like Shannon and see those guys, and and really admire what they've done and accomplished, and that's a lot more. It takes a lot more to be that man than is the man I was.
Yeah.
And so but you live and you learn.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for some of us, we don't learn for a long time.
Okay. All right. I think these are the final two questions I'm going to ask you. All right, and then I'll let you go to bed. The questions would be, what's the thing about high school like that you would have done differently? What's the part you like right here? That was like one of the highlights. What would you change? What will always stand positive in your mind?
It's funny because they're totally opposite ends. The one thing that I loved about Collegeville Academy is the friendships I made there.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff. Well, I knew Jeff beforehand, but really kind of sealing that friendship. Jeff and Brian and you. I mean, it's funny because I talked to you like on our 25 year reunion, and I knew you weren't there the whole time, but I was like, you weren't there. You're only there 2 years, and of course, you and I kind of hung around. I guess it was our sophomore year.
Yeah.
When we were hanging around some of the same people: Beth Parker, Raji, Julie Guerin,
Charlotte.
Oh shoot, Charlotte, and I can't remember her name. Edit that part out.
Okay.
But we were. So I thought we were good buddies, but of course, 25 years go by, 30 years now, and you kind of forget some of the details. But
sure.
So anyway, my friends, my close friends, because those friends now are, 30 years later, those are still some of my best friends.
Yeah.
Those are the guys I talk to, call. We still go out and do things together every once in a while. Of course, we all have kids and married, and life gets in the way.
Sure.
But but that's my friends. Now, the one thing I wish I would, this is kind of totally opposite, is I wish I never would have gone there. And I say that because, and I know this is, some people are going to say, oh, he's crazy. And of course, some people are going to agree with me 100%.
Yeah. Is
that, I really thought in the Adventist system, we were misled a lot. And I don't want to say lied to, because we weren't, but we were really taught Old Testament rules, regulations, Mosaic law, and that's all they taught us.
Yeah.
It was like we talked about earlier. You could go play in a creek because that was nature, but you couldn't go play in the pool because that's having fun, and that's not really something you do on the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like living with a bunch of Pharisees. They were, you can go on a walk, but not too far, not too strenuous, because it's the Sabbath.
Yeah.
And we don't do that.
Right.
So, and then after that, and really honestly, once I got out of Collegeville Academy, I kind of went, I don't want to say I went wild or anything like that, but I was just like, you know what, this is not real world. Mm-hmm. And so I really I guess lost is a good word for it. I went out partying, having a good time, having fun, because there's no way in the world you make me live by these rules. It's just, I'm sorry, it just can't happen. And that's me saying that was my attitude.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't till much later in life that I started really looking at the Bible and things for myself, and said, you know what, there's more to it than what I was taught. And really to the point where it almost angered me at times, because I would read stuff and I was like, I was never taught this. I was taught you can't eat pork, you can't drink alcohol, you can't do this stuff because the Bible says that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, wait a minute. As I started reading for myself and studying for myself, I said, that's not what all it says. In fact, there are times when Paul encouraged people to drink wine to settle their stomach.
Correct.
Now, and of course, he always preached against drunkenness, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
But so, we weren't taught love and grace and forgiveness. We were taught wrongs and rights. And so, and so the reason I say that, why I wish I hadn't gone there, is because for so long, I held what I was taught there, that's the way it's supposed to be. And then I realized that's not the way it's supposed to be. Now, and saying all that, I still talk to Richard Hickam. Of course, he's big in the Adventist church. And he tells you there's a lot of things changing since we went to school there. And I hope so, because I honestly look back and say we were not taught what we should be taught. And so it took me forever to get through that. And it wasn't like it was a daily struggle. It was just like, I don't care. I'm not going to do it because I just don't care. Yeah. And so it just took me a while to get to the learning what it really is supposed to be about. Yeah. And because
because when you're restrained for so long, when those shackles finally come off, and I'm not even talking like you're walking away from Adventism necessarily, but just when you're not under the watchful eye, and you can really do whatever you want, it's a crazy time. So I fully get that, and I think what's unfortunate is that because there was such a heavy focus on, and maybe the reason is because they feel like we've got to restrain these kids. If we don't, if we don't enforce these things, God only knows what they're going to get into. So I get that. I get that in a certain sense, but the problem is that you have created these kids that all of a sudden feel so strapped in that when you finally remove it, they're going to lose their minds, and they're not going to be able to handle that kind of a freedom. And they're not going to be able to handle maybe some of the guilt that's going to even come now after that. I do agree that should have been changed. Hopefully, thankfully on your part, and I think on my part, we were able to safely get through that time and get to a point where we understand how important grace is. And I also believe that and I still believe there are probably Adventists and kids that we went to school with that have also went through the same thing that you and I did, and they still ended up in Adventism, and that's perfectly fine. When I left Adventism, when I left, I was on this thing like everybody's got to come out, and then as I matured, as I thought about it, you know what? Listen, if that works for you, if you have a relationship with Christ, hey, you go right ahead. And if you feel to you it's a sin to break the Sabbath or to go in the pool or eat pork, then you go right on with that. Who am I? You don't answer to me. But
exactly.
So
and that's not what we were taught. Unfortunately, we were taught we were right, they're wrong.
Yeah, it certainly felt that way a lot.
Against everybody else.
Yeah.
And and so I tell my son who's wanting to be a math teacher. He's going to school to be a math teacher. And I asked one, I said, what is the teacher's job in high school? I didn't say specific what kind of teacher. So what is the teacher's job? Well, he said, to teach people and so they can learn how to do these, or in his case, math problems. I said, not really, son. Your job is to teach kids how to think and how to learn, in his case, solve the math problems. Mm-hmm. It's to teach them to think. The problem is nowadays, and I feel the same way, maybe not as much when we were in school, it's become the teacher's job is to teach kids how they believe. Mm-hmm. And we were never taught how to think. We were taught doctrine. We were taught, like I said, this is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, there's some good guys in our class and outside our class and whoever that are still Adventists and are living their life the way they believe, and more power to them. I think that's great. It just didn't work for me.
Right.
Paul. When I refer back to Paul, he said, "Hey, when the New Testament talked about eating pork and drinking, they said if it offends somebody, don't do it.
Yep.
Why would you want to do something that offends somebody? So if I'm around people that aren't eating meat or aren't, I don't either. I want to offend somebody.
Yeah, I'm not trying to shove it in anybody's face or anything like that.
Right. Exactly. And that's kind of how it was. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like I said, so that's, I look back and I say, hey, that's my biggest regret that I even went there. Not because I didn't have a good time, not because I met some great people there that I still talk to all the time. And, and funny thing is, people that I hadn't talked to in about, 30 years that I'm actually now communicating with through Facebook and stuff, trying to, set up things to do together and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just amazing how after 30 years, it's just like 30 years ago, you're still good friends, you still hang out, you still talk. And it's just, just matured,
and that,
is, a good thing.
This reunion was very nice to be able to see everybody once again.
Had a good time.
Yeah. And, I don't, like, I went to Mount Vernon Academy my senior year, and I'm great friends with a lot of the students that I went to school with there too. But like some of the other classes that you and I have even talked about, meaning, class of 87, 86, whatever, like I don't see the same type of connection between those classes that the class of 88 somehow had. And I feel bad for them, because like what I feel like we have is really very, very special. I feel like there's a real genuine caring, and everybody, they actually like each other for the most part, except for a couple people.
Well, I tell you this. I tell you this. This was during, actually it was last year during the reunion weekend. Of course, College Academy, they have the reunion weekend. That's when everybody shows up.
Right.
And, because it wasn't on our class, I didn't even go. We had, as some friends in the neighborhood, we'd gone out to eat, and I noticed a couple kids, or I say kids, a couple of people from the class of 87.
Okay.
Or maybe it was in 86. I can't remember. But there was a couple, I think it was 86. There was a couple of them sitting in the restaurant. Yeah. I was like, oh, and I knew them. One of them was a friend. A couple of them were friends of mine in high school. I said, oh, man, good to see you guys. What are y'all up to? And they said, well, we were going to have a get-together for our class. It was the honor class. So it must have been 2 years ago.
Okay.
They said, class of 86, honor class, we're going to get some people together here. And I said, oh, okay. Yeah, it's good seeing you guys. Hey, how you doing? So I go back and
like how many are there?
3. And only 3 showed up the whole night.
So you're not saying 6 showed up. You're saying those 3 are all that were there?
3, all that showed up.
So yeah, that's sad.
Like,
that's sad. But we
probably had 35, 40 people show up from ours.
I think, the thing I'm really trying to keep in mind is that not everyone's high school experience was great. There are some people that got bullied, that had just really, really bad times. And so I try to have grace in that regard and think, what? But I think one of the things that Richard, and I think you've even said it at the same time, listen, I don't care about any of that stuff anymore. I don't care where you are today or where you believe or whatever difference you might think that we have. I just want to see you. And that's
exactly.
kind of how I
agree 100%.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. It's just, let's just hang out. I'm not concerned. Like when I was like the week or so prior to the reunion, some people are like, are they going to let you back in knowing you're not an Adventist? And Shannon Cantrell, like he goes online because he saw it. He's like, absolutely. And that's the spirit that I appreciate, is that like, yeah, come on. I don't care if we see everything exactly the same. I'm going to close you with one other thing that was really powerful to me. And it happened at your house on that Friday night. And it was Nikki Weich and Wes Robertson sitting out there at your little table talking. And those of you who don't understand, like, you couldn't get two people more politically apart, but because of everything that Wes was going through, and because of, I think, who they are as people, all of that is set aside, and we're just going to sit and talk and enjoy each other's company. And I'm getting goosebumps even just thinking about when I saw that. It was just a great thing. Yep. So thank you again.
It is, and that's what makes it great. It's, like I said, and Lori Owens actually brought it up during the Saturday night, that we went, anybody, any group goes through high school together, they go through some tough times.
Yeah.
because it's a big growing. It's a time when you're growing up, you're maturing, you're having all these funny things happen to your body. You have all this stuff going on, and those are the people you're sharing it with. They're going through the same thing, and so even 30 years later, you still relate to them.
Yeah,
and you could be, and even I can see people now that I totally did not like in high school, and I can run into them, or we'll start talking. And more times than not, you realize how much you actually had in common.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, you just didn't get along in high school.
Yeah.
Call it maturity. Call it you just, you're a stupid kid.
Yeah.
You just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And so now, I'm like, don't hold that stuff against me. I don't hold it against you.
Correct.
Let's get together. Let's have just to sit and talk. And if things come up from high school, trust me, I'll be the first one to admit, hey, I'm sorry. I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was just, some of the things you do as a stupid kid, you just like, man, I hate that.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
well, dude, thank you for being the very first one to sit down and do this.
No problem.
I think this is cool, and I think that people will appreciate hearing this. So, I appreciate you, man.
No problem, man. I appreciate you letting me be on here.